Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm Brian Call. Today I'm joined by Trevor Farnes, co-founder of Mountain Ops. Trevor started his journey while raising a young family, working to make ends meet, and launching a supplement company to help his dad recover from heart issues. On this episode, we dive into how he built a business with meaning, led with faith, kept family at the center, and why perseverance beats talent. Let's get into it. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am at the Mountain Ops HQ with
welcome back
with Trevor Farnes, and I was on your podcast the other day, and thank you for hosting me.
It was awesome, and great feedback on that, by the way. Everyone loved it.
Thank you. Right on. Well, today I'm going to have you on the Gritty Podcast, and we're going to catch up with you and just get to know a little bit about Trevor. And so, give folks a little bit of your background, because the first time I met you, I don't know, it was 2016 maybe?
Was it after?
Or 17?
Well, we started Mountain Ops 2014. So how long after was it?
Man, it was right at the 2016, I think, shortly after I had Casey and Jordan. I met with them up on a mountaintop.
Okay.
And then we had dinner. I think
that's right.
It was
a 2015 Hunt Expo. It was the very first time. That's what it was. We went to like a rodeo. It was Decano's. A Rodizio Grill. I can't remember.
I was living large that night.
Well, I remember sitting across the table from you and hearing you and your wife's story and her cancer experience and scare with that. And
she had just finished chemo, probably a few months before that dinner. So it was.
That's right.
It was a poignant stage of life, where I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out, and you struggle through it. She was for like a year just in the fetal position in bed and losing her hair and fighting through cancer, and the kids, I'm kind of doing the kid thing by myself. And at the same time, right about the time she finishes her chemo, I'm like, she's feeling better, and I'm toying around with just a podcast for fun. And within a few months, it just sort of became a thing.
Wow.
So we were talking, but same thing. I mean, Mountain Ops, it seemed like it just showed up overnight.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? Hey, everybody, if you like the show and you want to support us, head on over to Mountain Ops. If you're in need of a new merino hoodie, or you want some workout clothes, or you just want a little pick-me-up. I like the Mountain Ops Ignite, especially like the pink lemonade flavor. It's a good one. I recommend that. Head on over to Mountain Ops, use the code GRITTY. You're going to save, and it's going to help us keep bringing you the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now, let's get back to the show.
Well, my history in supplements, it wasn't my first rodeo in the supplement world. Prior to that, about 5 years prior, I'd started another company called Phoenix Nutrition, and it was really to help my dad. It was to help him with his heart health issues. We've got a history of heart disease in the family. His dad died of a heart attack. My mom's dad died of a stroke. Now my dad had just had a couple stents put in his heart. Okay. So when he had that heart attack and the stents went in, they told him, you'll have open heart surgery for sure in about 5 years. I was coming off of a bunch of business failures, but I saw this as an opportunity. If I could somehow create a product to help my dad, it'd be something that I could really sink my teeth into, support my father. That'd be a mission that I could grit and bear and go through, the trials of starting a new business. And so I actually read a book called No More Heart Disease by Luis Signaro. He had won the Nobel Prize in 1998 for his work with nitric oxide as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. And I wasn't a typical read for me. I wouldn't pick up a book on on a miracle molecule. But because of what was going on and what I was learning about my genetics and such, was like, maybe this could be something for my dad, my brothers, myself. Took that book to a chemist and asked him to whip me up a concoction that we could put my father on and test out. And sure enough, my dad had extreme neuropathy, couldn't feel his fingers and toes, his toenails, fingernails were all dead, and just poor circulation. So we put him on this concoction, and he started to see some improvement within a few days, some pins and needle sensation. So we knew we were onto something. And that's kind of how I got into supplementation. Started selling through doctors' offices. So we had doctors that were kind of signing off on the credibility of this product. It's now called Enduro in the Mountain Ops lineup.
Yeah.
That's what started it all. But then in 2014, I was really looking for an opportunity to take these products I had created it wasn't I wasn't like, hey, I got to go for the
Yeah.
hunting audience. I didn't grow up hunting. This was all
Right.
new to me. But I wanted to take it to a community where I could be in touch with the end user and kind of have some experience with them and that passion. I love people. And through the doctor's offices, I wasn't seeing the end result of their patients, you know? So honestly, just looking for an opportunity to improve the distribution of the product that I had. Was introduced to the Harbison brothers and to Joel Pilcher. They had a marketing agency at the time. Zulu 6 was the name.
Right.
And it was me and Casey at first, and we were just chatting, and he was telling me about the marketing they were doing in the hunting industry. And I asked him if there was a place for supplements in hunting.
Yeah.
I could tell kind of his eyes were like,
Lit up.
hey, there's a major hunter athlete movement at this time.
Mhm.
There's brands like Under Armour, Yeti, Sitka.
Oh yeah.
But there wasn't a consumable brand that was really leading the way with some, you know, with some meaning. And so he said, you know, if your products really work, if we brand this correctly and market it correctly, there's a big opportunity. So that was the start of it all.
Did it surprise you? You know, like I was just telling you about our friend who won the wolf hunt that we just did. We just did a wolf hunt with a man who won a giveaway we did.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, if you had told me 10 years earlier that when I first heard a Gritty podcast in 2015, that in 2025 I'd be on a hunt with you, that I just couldn't have believed it. I mean, have you been there where you're just thinking to yourself, you know, where Mountain Ops has gone? Was this something you just envisioned, or is this like I
think what happened was there was multiple kind of visions that came together from multiple individuals, and individuals that really cared about doing something meaningful and special, and I'm grateful for that. We came together in a meaningful way. But no, I couldn't look at this and say, oh, I'm sitting exactly where I would have pictured, 10 years ago. No, not at all, because honestly, I had never hunted before. I didn't understand the industry. I understood the product and what it could do for people. And the fact that I was now with a group of individuals who were so passionate about what they did, and I could fuel that passion, that number one, I was like, this is incredible. I can be the one that fuels this passion. I can keep them doing what they love doing longer, with more impact. But then it wasn't enough to just fuel that. I at some point I was like, I've got to jump into this, and I've got to see if I understand this passion, and I started out in a really interesting way. You and I are going to South Africa in a few weeks together. I started in South Africa, of all places. I just had a call from a brother-in-law who had just bid on an SFW banquet African tag. It was a group of 4 tags, and for 4 people for a week, and food and lodging and everything. And it was like $2,500 that he won this bid. And he's like, I can't go. Do you want to trade me some Mountain Ops supplements? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do this. So I called a few buddies on my street, and Joel Pilcher went with me. And I said, how would you guys like to go to South Africa in a month? And I didn't even have a passport at the time. So that was the most expensive part of the trip, was expediting a passport. And I went to South Africa, and just, obviously it's a little bit different hunting there. There are areas where it's shooting fish in a barrel. Where you and I are going, it's not. It's very mountainous. It looks like Utah. You're hiking the mountains. The kudu are very elusive. Like
I'm pretty sure, isn't that where I saw Matt Davis?
Matt Davis went down last year. Yeah, and that was cool. I asked him to go to represent Mountain Ops for it, and the similar hunt that we're going to do. And Matt was there. This will be my 4th time there. But then after that, I was like, I really love and respect what hunters do, and I can kind of feel like I'm getting the bug. Yeah. And then my family started hunting all over the world, and together, and my wife and my kids and my mom and my dad and my brothers. It's like, it's been this thing where I've got FOMO, fear of others missing out, not FOMO. And so, when I see a good movie or eat at a good restaurant, I'm the type that's like, I've got to share this. I love sharing. And so I've tried to do that with hunting. I've loved it. I've loved the experience it's given my family, the personal time and attention that we have with each other. And so never would I have expected that 10 years later, I'd be just fully involved and entrenched and consumed by this industry that I've come to love, and the people that I've loved. I love in this industry, and how we're fueling their passion. But now I truly understand the passion, and I'm still learning a ton. I'm no Brian Call. I haven't done a lot of what you've done, but I've enjoyed the way I've done it, the approach and the time that I've spent with my family doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this industry's been incredibly kind to us, and they've opened their arms. I was a little nervous at first with all the male dominance in this industry that maybe they wouldn't want to teach me. It's been the exact opposite. Individuals like you that are like, no, I'll share with you what I know, your podcast alone, look at that individual that just went on the wolf hunt with you and how he learned and grew, and his gear that he had was exactly like you. It's like you find some people in life that are willing to share and give what they have, and it just changes people's lives. So this industry has done that for me. The scale of the business, it's been incredible. And it's been because this audience has just open up their arms. They love the product. They love the way it makes them feel. They love the way it tastes. And then they're attracted to our core values because they align so well with so many people.
Yeah.
And what we're doing in the community with Operation Conquer Hunger, it's kind of, I feel like this hunting audience has said, we get it. We understand what you guys are trying to do. And you're not just a supplement company trying to make me look fit. You're really helping me on many levels of life,
Hey friends, hope you're enjoying the show. I'll keep this quick. We're excited to announce Gritty Movie Night early screening events. They're exclusive events where you can catch a brand new Gritty film on the big screen at select theaters across the country. Right now, we just have a theater in Salt Lake City coming up here on May 29th. After that, we'll be in Portland. We're going to try to bring movies to a few different areas. For details, go to briancall.com/events. That's briancall.com/events. Go there, see if we're going to bring a film to a theater near you. And if you're interested in joining us for hunting seminars, workout meetups, group hikes, or any other events, check back on the events page from time to time, because we're going to keep adding new events to that page all the time. We got gritty stories, big screens, good people, thousands in prizes. Grab your tickets now at briancall.com/events. Hope we see you there. Now let's get back to the show. Certainly with Mountain Ops, what I felt over the years is the, there's focus energy from, I can't help it. I'm a huge fan of Ignite I like Yeti too, but creatine every day is a little bit strong, and it's not always pre-workout I'm looking for. It's sort of more like sustained energy all day, And so that was just a winner and has been just a winner, hit it out of the park with that. But there's community with Mountain Ops over the years. Like I have so many connections and relationships through this company and all the friends and people I've met. I feel like, I came up with Mountain Ops.
Yeah, you did.
At the same time.
We kind of grew up together in this space, right?
This is my old podcast
This is yours.
studio.
It was built out for you, and now I'm sitting in this chair over here, and trying to podcast like you. 20 episodes in compared to your 900. I'm cutting my teeth, but I'm enjoying it. But this was built for you.
How has that been, by the way? 20 episodes in.
Yeah.
And a lot of I think I might have told you this. The difference between a lot of shows that make it and don't, or they get past 20 episodes. 20 episodes
no way.
Is that
Is
number.
that the thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like the statistics for shows, for podcasts that get beyond 20 episodes and then stay around is very high.
Wow.
Which is kind of shocking to me, like that guys don't even make it to 20, but it's a lot more work than people think.
It is. It's a lot of work. And fortunately, I've got an incredible team that's helped. We've actually got, when we launched this in December, the Conquercast, it was, I think we had 16 in the can ready to go. We just weren't ready to launch it. And so once the team was ready, I already had that many. So we're now, I think I probably have recorded like 25. So we're past that statistic. We just need to, get each of the episodes out now. And I've got a list of podcast scheduled. So that's a great number to know and gives me some hope. It's going really well. I've enjoyed it. I've been able to connect with a lot of our partners in a way that I wasn't able to before, where you can call and say, hey, how are you? What's going on? Anything we can do? But I can also bring them in here to the headquarters. Yep. I mean, when you and I met for the podcast, I think we got a workout in that day
did.
And we're going to do it again today.
Yep.
And so it gives me an opportunity to sit down, get to know, catch up, record, kill multiple birds with one stone. Then the team gets to be involved.
It's not just that, Trevor. When you throw a headset on somebody and it's just, you got a microphone and a headset, there's a certain attention to the conversation that you get, and it's a different type of conversation.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started the podcast, one of the things that I was drawn to was the idea of being able to put the headset on, somebody that I was very curious about knowing the inner workings of, and then sit down and get their their totally focused attention.
So good.
So I could then like pick their brain, learn from them, figure out how they ticked, and the listener of the show just got to participate in that and be sort of a fly on the wall for that conversation. And they found value there. And at the time when I started, it was novel. You couldn't get, social was still pretty new. And, if you wanted to have a 2-hour conversation on how Corey Jacobson called elk, or just, where he came from and how he got started, or someone like Will Primos, that wasn't really there. Yeah. It was all like TV shows and like pre-formatted stuff that was out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the podcast medium gave you access to interesting people in a long form conversation that really hadn't been grabbed before in 2015. There just wasn't that much of it.
Right.
So today it's a lot more competitive market, but it's also a much more popular medium.
Yeah.
I mean, podcasts are huge right now.
It's like, it feels like what you go to on your phone when you're going to do a workout or you're going for a drive. It's like, turning on the radio used to be.
Yeah.
And there is so many of them. That's one thing I worried about, but we have such a captive audience with Mountain Ops that they want us to break down the walls. They want to peek into what we're doing. They're interested in the behind the scenes. And so, we have team members come on, and then we have individuals like you that have some major influence in the industry, and everyone's interested in it all,
Yeah.
And so it's given us, I feel, a way to connect even further with our already established audience and to just give that relationship more substance, right?
Hey folks, pardon the interruption, but I've got to tell you about this new Tricer RP bipod for your rifle. This thing is incredible. It's going to take the market by storm. You're going to want one. Everyone will. It's like no other bipod on the market. It's been designed to do everything in one bipod, which is generally not what we have available to us on the market today. Use the code GRITTY over at Tricer and you will save. Whether you're shooting from a prone or sitting position, this bipod adapts seamlessly to every field environment. You're going to get rock solid stability when it matters most. This bipod includes everything for $299. You've got the long legs, the short legs, you got spikes, you got rubber feet, Arca Swiss, Picatinny compatible, plus a swivel stud to Picatinny adapter, giving you unmatched flexibility for any hunting scenario. Bottom line, this is the last bipod you'll ever need. Use the code GRITTY over at Tricer.com. You'll get a discount and you'll get the last bipod you'll ever need. All right, let's get back to the show. Were you always fit? I'm trying to think back to 2015. Like, were you like, cause now it's like when we work out, you're no slouch. You're down there like,
I'm not Brian Call, but I move like, no, I honestly, when I first started that first business, it was interesting. I was a soccer player growing up, loved that kind of thing, loved the outdoors, mountain biking, hiking, skiing. So I'm active. I've always been active, but I always hated the gym scene. I didn't like the gym scene. I'd go into the
Why?
gym. Maybe it's just a self-confidence issue or something, going in for the first time and not knowing exactly what to do, looking around. And there's a lot of ego in the gym.
There's a lot of comparison.
There's a lot of comparison. And sometimes when that comparison happens or the ego gets in the way, you do dumb things. You lift too heavy. You do, I'd go into some gyms sometimes and see a guy chatting a little too friendly with, and I was like, I know that guy, and I know that's not the girl he should be talking to. Right. And so it's just kind of like a little leery.
There's a lot of negative behavior and stuff that
stereotypes
can
and
follow that. Yeah.
So, but
Especially if you go to a global gym.
Yeah.
I didn't do that too much. Going to a CrossFit gym, it was like a community.
I love that.
It's just a different feeling.
Yeah. So I was active. I was an athlete growing up, and I never let that down. Even when I got off my mission, I joined a men's league, Division I men's league soccer team here, and we were this Utah State champs Division I men's. So I stayed active. But then when I first started that supplement company, we were officing with multiple businesses, and we decided to do an inter-company fitness challenge between all those businesses. My family was broke at the time, and I remember that there was $1,000 cash prize for the winner. My kids wanted to go to Disneyland so bad, and so I told my wife, I'm going to win this competition, and with that $1,000 and then maybe a little yard sale that we'll have to do to make up the difference, we're going to Disneyland. And so there was no way I was going to lose that. There was a little teeny gym in my brother's car dealership. You remember going there. There was like this one Smith machine and a couple things. I didn't know what to do, so I focused on chest day was the best day, and curls for my girls. And that's what I did. I did shoulders, biceps, triceps, and chest. Six days a week, and I've got the legs to prove it. And at the end of the 90 days, I won the competition. There was probably 20 people involved, but I got the $1,000. We held a yard sale, and we took the kids to Disneyland.
That's cool.
And it stuck. Like when I get into a habit like that, I don't let it go. So then it just kind of morphed into other things, and a little bit of running, trail marathons. But I 6 days a week. Typically, I'm in the Mountain Ops gym down here doing my thing. It
does help. It does help to have a gym, and it helps tremendously to have community. There's a bit of accountability here. You work at and are found Mountain Ops. So there's a little bit of like an expectation.
You can't give what you don't have, and when you live it, you can give it, and there's power in that. And so what we do here at Mountain Ops in the culture is we have our Conquer More challenge. Right now, the community is participating in a Conquer 90 challenge. Well, so is the Mountain Ops team internally. You can't give what you don't have, so we do that. And so I believe firmly in if we're gonna teach people how to conquer physically, spiritually, mentally, socially, we better be doing those things ourselves. I don't want to be a fake or a fraud. And so we incorporate it into our culture, and there is that accountability that goes along with it. And we've got our own Slack channel as a team, and we're posting our recipes and the workouts we're doing, and we're encouraging each other along the way, all in an attempt to equip ourselves to help others conquer more as well.
If you were to look back on, if you look back on this journey, okay, and there's highs and lows, and what is one of the biggest, like your most fond stages of Mountain Ops, or, sort of as a businessman, entrepreneur, like, a couple of moments, along the way. 'Cause I'm always interested in entrepreneurship and independence, running your own business, that kind of thing. When you look back, like, where was that moment that stands out for you where it was like total victory, or it just felt like, wow?
There's a couple. And one of them ties to culture. They both kind of tie to culture, and one of them ties to our Operation Conquer Hunger. The Conquer Hunger piece, I remember I was watching through our YouTube videos a few weeks ago, and I found one where we hit 7,000 meals. Okay. And I was so excited to film that story, to tell the Mountain Ops community we just hit 7,000 meals.
And just to back up, like, for people who don't know, what do you mean Conquer Hunger?
So Operation Conquer Hunger, what we have is a mechanism where every order that comes through our site, we take a portion of the proceeds, the revenue from that, and we buy food for a child in need. So every order equals a meal to a child in need. And we started this about a year into Mountain Ops, but prior to that, my wife and I had kind of started it on our own. It just wasn't called Operation Conquer Hunger. We were donating $22 a month through a foundation that would feed a child in Malawi, Africa, for a month. It would feed him. This came right during our own personal struggle and affliction and our trials with food insecurities. I had multiple business failures. We found ourselves with not a lot of food in the pantry, and we were really struggling. We call it our 7 years of famine. And in the statistic here in Davis County, Utah, where we live, it's 1 in 4 children go home on the weekends without enough food in the pantry. That was my family. We were the 1 in 4. And we had multiple miracles along the way, but we always focused on if there was like $5 extra, we'd buy the hot and ready pizza on Friday night. That was like the best night of the week. But it was a conversation that we had all the time, was how are we going to feed our children? And so during those struggles, we decided $22 would be a donation we make. It would be a stretch for us. It would be a sacrifice for us, but we would do that because we now understood how hard it was to be a parent that we weren't starving. We weren't starving like kids in Malawi. We were just hungry, right? And so our eyes were open, and perspective is an incredible gift. And we saw that as such. We saw that God was trying to teach us some lessons along the way. He was opening up our eyes. He was opening up our heart and our minds to the need around us. And we felt like we needed to do something about it. You're most powerfully positioned in life to serve the person you once were. And so I remember looking at, our faith, we would read the scriptures often together. Anytime Jesus talked about the bread of life or feed my sheep, we kind of took that literally, like, okay, we're going to feed his sheep. The story of the loaves and the fishes. There was a young lad, and I believe in the story they forgot to talk about the young lady next to him. And he took a few loaves and a few fishes, and they were multiplied. And we decided that with the small amount of loaves and fishes we had, we would turn it over to the Lord and see what we could do together with it. And never did we expect the boat to come in full. So we thought, let's just start now. And never did we expect for them to truly be multiplied. But we just hit 7 million meals having been donated through Operation Conquer Hunger. But
so 7,000.
7,000 to now 7 million. Yeah. But last year we got a call from New Skin. That's who we were actually donating the $22 to. $1 billion brand here in Utah. Big company. They've probably donated around 1 billion meals to children in need. And the Utah Jazz, they both called us. They called Mountain Ops. They said, hey, would you like to participate in a hunger event with us where we're going to pack over 500,000 meals? It's going to be a Guinness World Record. We're going to have 2,500 people there to win this Guinness World Record. And I just was stunned that they called me to do this. They had no idea that we started with them. They just knew that Mountain Ops in Utah was running this Operation Conquer Hunger, and maybe they'd like to participate. The cool thing about that was 14 years ago, when I was first starting that supplement brand for my dad, I was sitting on the back row in a 6,000 person auditorium. There's 6,000 people there. I was sitting on the back row of a New Skin event, and I heard about this Nourish the Children. And they wanted me to join the business, but it wasn't my business style. I didn't want to do this multi-level thing, but I was sitting on the back row, and I heard $22 you can donate to feed a hunger. And I was sitting back there thinking, I'm not going to do this business, but maybe my wife would want to do this with me. And so we decided to do it. 14 years later, they're calling me saying, would you come and do this? And Mountain Ops donated. We were the largest donor to this Guinness World Record attempt, and we did. We achieved it. And they had us come back to that same event that we were at 14 years earlier. And they had my family sit on the front row this time. And we weren't seeking that recognition. It just, we didn't even anticipate it. It was a Benson Boone concert they were putting on. But before it, they had the founders, Sandy Tillotson and Steve Lund, come out on stage. And they said, there's a family and there's a business we need to recognize here tonight. And Farnes family from Mountain Ops, please stand up. And then these 6,000 people where I was sitting in the back row 14 years earlier, this standing ovation. And again, I'm not saying that because it's like, look at how they recognize this. It was like this full circle moment where God truly did take the loaves and fishes that we had at the time, and he multiplied them in incredible ways. And we've just gotten to be a part of this ride with individuals here at Mountain Ops, the community at Mountain Ops that's come together and understands the importance of doing good in business, having stewardship over the resources that are created in business. And so I've just watched, that's one of the highlights for me over the last couple of years, is watching how the Lord will return those baskets to you, 12 baskets full, time and time again. And it just gives us more and more to work with, whether that's relationships or opportunities or resources financially. When you turn it over to him, he multiplies in an incredible way. The math that he does is amazing, and it's just astonished me to see what this community has done together. So that was an incredible moment for us. The other one tied to culture was that we were recognized as one of Utah's best places to work last year, and the reason why that was so incredible for me was that had that came by way of every employee here at Mountain Ops having to fulfill a survey and fill it out and talk about what they thought of leadership, what they thought of core values, what they thought of the mission of Mountain Ops. How were they given opportunities to progress in their life because of this organization? And so it wasn't just an application we put in and said, here's what we're doing, please pick us. Every single employee here at Mountain Ops had to recommend and say, here's why this is my favorite place to work.
Trevor, I have a lot of admiration for that. Both of those examples, but especially, the people here that have said how much working here has, is the best place to work. Managing other people is not my skill set. I manage one. I manage me and I raise children. That's about like I've tried to grow, my business by hiring people and expanding and teaching and mentoring, and I suck at it. I really do. Before I started Gritty, I was an independent consultant for years. I was an auditor. I was an individual contributor at a Fortune 500 company. I had the option of managing an entire audit team, but I didn't want a boss, and I didn't want to boss anybody else. And I'm best that way. So when I try to, manage others, usually doesn't. It lasts a while, and then it doesn't. I just don't manage too independent. Maybe I don't know, but I really admire when people can do that.
Yeah, and we've got an incredible team that makes it a lot easier to manage. I think hiring the right way, that's been a blessing. I feel like one of the highlights of the last 11 years has been assembling the team that we have put together to fulfill this mission. And there's people that come and go, and the team changes, but I look back at everyone that's been here, and they've served an incredible contribution piece to what we're doing now, whether they're here now or not. I look at everyone that's touched this business, and it's been amazing. And I'm so grateful for the choice that they made to give a portion of their life to this business, because that's what you do when you're employed. You volunteer, you get paid for it, but you're volunteering your time and your heart. And that's the thing, when you treat people as if they're volunteering their time and attention, because they are, and you respect and love and are grateful for them that way, then they go the extra mile. Then they dedicate their heart and their mind and their soul. But we just it's a difficult thing. My favorite part of business is people, and the hardest part of business is people. And you just kind of hit some of these waves at times. There's peaks and valleys with people. There's emotions that are attached to decisions that are made in a business, and they affect people's personal lives. And so you walk a fine line on how to work with people, how to challenge them, how to hold them accountable, how to help them, create ownership in their own life. But what's created an environment that's been easy for me to operate in is establishing a set of core values. And those are the decision-making guardrails. And when a new employee starts here, I sit down with them. I do a little intro to the business. I give them a pair of shoes to start their journey on. And I let them know the choices you make in the shoes you wear today will determine the shoes you wear tomorrow. And there's blessings and opportunities, responsibilities that come with that. But the choices need to align with the core values we've set. And we need to agree to that. And so if people aren't abiding by that, then we have a conversation. How is the behavior that we're exhibiting creating trust? Or how is it diminishing trust? And so I just feel like when you have a set of values that you truly do live by, it gives you an ability to have those difficult conversations, because you've all said, we agree to this. This is how we will live. This is how that's our brand. It's not the mark on the wall. It's not the mark on the hat. It's how we treat people. It's how we make decisions. And when we live in accordance with those core values, we enhance the brand experience that everyone has. But if we live contrary to it, diminishes the effect and the impact that we can have. And living those core values lead us to our mission, which is to improve lives. And so we know whether we're on path is, if we're living true to the core values and if we're changing lives. But
along the way, especially when you try to build a business, there's always some period where it's the hard times. Things don't go as planned and so on. thinking back, like, what's one of those struggles that you went through this journey where, it was a hard stage and, maybe you just wanted to just walk away, but you're like, but you didn't, you stuck it through. I have a few of those myself. So
yeah. There's plenty. And, some of them came during the Mountain Ops phase. Some of them came during the Phoenix nutrition phase, all of that. Like there's times when, it's like, do I have it in me to continue on, or am I aligned at times with the people I'm working with? That's really difficult at times. And then, we sold part of the business in 2020, and that brings in a whole new element of accountability and structure and change. And change is difficult, And, there's some things that obviously I don't want to get too specific on, but there's just some times when the business has to go to another level and it takes a new team. And so you're bringing new people in.
That's so hard, dude. Like scaling is so
it's difficult. It on many levels, because it's scaling with people, it's scaling with the resources you have.
Because I've often asked myself, do I want to scale? Or what if I just stay where I'm at?
Yeah.
But there are people that want to see it, from your own family and so on, but also the people that you employ.
Yeah.
I especially feel that when I have people employed.
Yeah.
And I want to enrich their lives.
Yeah.
So I feel this pressure to grow in that way, because then I can help them grow too.
Yeah.
And so I feel it, but it's hard.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, it's taxing on people. It's taxing on your resources. I've always wondered, people said like growing pains have come in so many different ways. I'm like, oh, I didn't expect it that way, and you grow, you have more people, there's more diverse culture. There's HR gets a little more involved. And, there's
more corporate.
There's, we've tried to,
because I remember when it was over the dealership.
Yeah.
And it was seat of the pants. Let's do this now and wing this here and wing that there. Later, it becomes more structured.
Yeah.
There's more rigidity to it, but it's also got way more players involved and the stakes are higher. Now it's in different retail outlets and all kinds of stuff as it
compliance
grows.
Changes. There's, the target on your back gets bigger. The competition starts to nip at your heels. There's never really been a point where I'm just like, I'm done. Like I've believed so much in Mountain Ops and what we're doing that I feel like whatever the hard times were that came up, I was willing to stick it out. Like I've been through some hard times in life, and I feel like time has been one of my greatest assets. And sometimes I learned from Jim Shockey. He told me once, you got to let time do the hard work. And so sometimes people jump from one thing to the next, chasing the greener grass or this or that. And you might think, okay, this is really difficult here. I'm going to go over here. And then there's just going to be a new set of difficult. And so the problem with time is that we exhaust our energies in the wrong areas. And so we don't prioritize the right way. I've found that when I keep my priorities straight, no matter how difficult things are, I can push through, I can make it through. And as long as there's team members surrounding you with a similar, mission drive and, desire to live true to core values, you can get through anything. And so, we've had some ups and downs here, but it's never been anything too drastic, to be honest with you. Every once in a while there'll be an inventory issue or with manufacturing, or there'll be whatever it is. But, deciding to sell part of the business was a big deal.
Yeah.
In 2018, a lot of companies were inbound. Private equity calls were coming in saying, hey, we want to buy Mountain Ops. We'd like to purchase this or that. And it was just not the right timing. We would have sold out way too early. We had great cash flow. We were growing well. In 2020, we decided maybe this is a good time to professionalize things a little bit more, formalize things a little bit more. It was the board meetings before were kind of the Farns family, Harbison family, giving each other thumbs up. Okay, things are good. People really like Mountain Ops, this and that. There wasn't a ton of structure to that. It's fun. Those are fun times. And so, some people may not want to scale past that. But there was more and more pressure and kind of a sense of stewardship and ownership the more our team grew, to where it was like, I need to do as much as possible to secure the financial well-being and future of this business for all of these families. And so then you start making decisions that aren't just for yourself, they're for these 50 families.
If it was for yourself, if it was just for me, I'd just be one guy that just worked and did what I liked. But it's not just for me. There's other people that you can help make a dream come true, enhance the lives of. You're feeding people that are hungry, so there's a lot that is involved in that. Your comment on time, that I completely, wholeheartedly believe in that. I heard someone say it the other day. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about, because this is, where I live, is creating meaningful films and content that really reaches people. And they were saying, you can chase algorithms, you can chase right now. I can look at what people want through the algorithm, what's trending and what will be rewarded if I create it, and what thumbnail and all that. And I can put it out, and I can stray away from what I want to make or what I think matters. And I could just feed and chase what the TikTok tells me to do, and what the shorts and all these other things say, go do this and you'll get this reward. And certainly I could do that. And it would work for a while. But the real value, and I believe this completely, is in giving the public substance, the audience, something real. And so that means I'm creating something that really matters to people, that doesn't necessarily get the immediate return right now. But if I look at it in a 5-year and a 10-year window and a 20-year window, multi-decade, time is like a lever of power. When you pull that, if you do it the way I want to do it, and you look back 5 years later, the depth of the value of the content I've brought, to my community is deep and meaningful and lasting.
That's huge.
But it wasn't something that happened quickly. It was something that happened really slowly over a long window. And even now I look at, podcast episodes and things I've done and films I've created over the years. And each one of those is like a little building block toward this big thing that I created, but it wasn't, it was the pulling the lever of time. And too many people, I think, don't have faith in that long, slow, steady, continued effort.
We want instant gratification, and that's kind of what our world is teaching people. And there's so many ways to get it, and there's ways to get passive income or satisfaction and all this stuff without doing a lot of work. I don't buy into it at all. There's some things that could, flash in the pan things, something might go well really quickly, and then what's the longevity behind it? But you asked at the very beginning, this seemed to have just come out of nowhere, and did you ever expect this? Like, the way I look at it is, there was years and years and years of preparation going into the creation of Mountain Ops. And not just by me, by Jordan, Casey, Joel, myself, Nick, like all these people that were kind of at the beginning of this. We had been establishing a career in supplementation and working with doctors, understanding that in marketing, in how to brand, how to bring communities together, all these things. And that's when you want to be ready for those opportunities that come your way so that you can say yes, like always be ready.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like happened. It wasn't this like, we could try supplements
Right.
and I mean, I could dive into building a website and this. No, it was this incredible team of individuals. And I'm super grateful for every single one of them. I really am, because we came together in a unique way to build something that is blessing hundreds of thousands and millions of lives. And that's what I want to like really focus on in this journey is like, some of us aren't working together anymore, but we created something super special together.
Yeah.
And there's,
I feel that way because I was here.
Yeah.
I was here. And so, the years I spent sitting and in this at this very spot in this very room, it helped me become and build what I've been able to build, and it was this, there are many people I still am in touch with, many that I'm not, that were part of this. But when you find that magic sort of chemistry where everything kind of comes together and magic really happens, that's something to always, I think, look back on in gratitude.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so appreciative, and everyone that walks the halls here of Mountain Ops and is a part of the contribution. I'm a simple guy. I've said this for years and years. Like, there's no way I'd be succeeding the way that we are on my own. I'm just not meant to. We're not meant to succeed on our own.
Yeah.
So there's connection that creates that, and for me, it's family connection, having the support from home, so that you can come to work and like put your whole heart and soul into it, and then go home to a family that supports you. That's an incredible gift my wife and kids have given me. The team here, it's the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a simple piece of it. These individuals are incredible. They know what they're doing. We've got a new CEO. We've built out an incredible, pretty new marketing team. There's so many people that have tenure here that have just contributed for many, many years. It's amazing. And then I always go back to our number one core value at Mountain Ops, which is recognizing God. Even in the workplace, we strive to acknowledge His hand. When you bring that type of recipe together, and people are hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they can also be the best thing that ever happens to you. Relationships are what matter most. And so if approached the right way and taken care of the right way, the magic happens. And I've watched that.
So how long have you been married, Trevor?
22 years as of 2 weeks ago.
22 years. And how old are you now?
43.
43. Okay. 43 years old, married 22 years. For those that are maybe not married yet, or that have recently gotten married, like, what is your advice in the marriage department, in the relationship?
Oh man. My wife.
Your guiding principles, I guess.
Yeah. Honestly, so similar to a business.
Really?
Yeah. Core values are the thing that hold me and my wife together. It's for me, this is, our first year of marriage was our hardest year.
Yeah.
Our stubborn sides came out. We were young. I was 21. She was 18. She was fresh out of high school. I was right off of a mission. We were basically raising each other. And then we had our first kid. That first child, actually, and then everyone since, has been like one of the greatest miracles for our marriage, because the first year we were kind of focused on like, I do things this way. Well, I do things this way. This is how my family does things.
Yeah.
This is how my family does things. We fell into that trap.
Everyone does. I mean, part of it is establishing some boundaries and some, like, you're saying to your wife, I'm okay with this, not this.
Yeah.
She's saying the same to you.
Yeah.
And some things are negotiable, some are less so.
Yeah.
And there's some power struggles that happen, and that's pretty normal. How do you get through that though and stay in love and all of it?
Yeah, it always came down to like we needed to find a way to communicate better.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, and I've seen it in business with partnerships, and I've seen it in my marriage, like we're both saying the same thing in a different way, and we both want to get to the same place. We're just kind of understanding it differently. So one of the greatest things, I love it from Stephen Covey, is seek first to understand and then be understood. But to understand, you have to be a good listener. You have to give some attention. When I talk about a value set, for me, Jenna put God first before me. And I love that about her.
Mm.
It was her focus on Jesus Christ, and I could trust her because of that. And I did the same for her. And so while we had differences of opinions or this or that, I always knew the one thing that was common between us was the most important thing. And that was an additional relationship, additional individual in our relationship that we kept at the center. And that has made all the difference, because when we hit the hard times, if you ask my wife how we got through the financial difficulties, when we lost everything, and she would say, instead of turning away from each other, we turned towards each other, but together we looked to Christ. That was it. That was the key for us getting through. And I've seen people pull her aside and say, okay, you said you focused on Jesus Christ in your marriage. Like, what else? And she's like, no, nothing else. It was focusing on him. Because
all of that sort of, to me, everything flows out of that shared value.
Yeah.
Well, and when you say Jesus Christ, Trevor, it's like, it's like, if he's the archetypal human being, the quintessential example of what it's the best of what it means to be a man, for example, or a human being, and you're going to model after that, then you're patient, long-suffering,
100%.
kind, forgiving, also brave, bold, courageous, fearless. Like you embody like the best.
Yeah, he's the perfect leader.
Yeah.
Right? The perfect example of how we should be. In fact, I asked my dad once, it was in a moment in our marriage, we had kids, I felt like things were on the cusp of maybe some good things happening for us. We'd been struggling for a while, but I felt like he was prepping me for something. And so I asked my dad for a blessing, and I prepared for that. I fasted. I was really intentional about that. My dad's a long-winded guy, kind of like me and you. And so the blessings that he would sometimes give me were a little long-winded. They would go on and on and on. Sometimes his prayers went, and my friends that were over at our house were like, man, I've never heard a prayer like this before. But I remember him putting his hands on my head, giving me a blessing, and it was the shortest blessing I'd received. And it was, study the life of Jesus Christ, his characteristics, and apply them to your life, and you will fulfill your responsibilities as a husband, as a father, as a business owner and leader in a way never before. So, and it was it. That was it. So I've really focused on that in life. It's like, okay, if I am to treat my wife the way that I would follow that leader, then it is going to be with patience. It's loving, kindness, long-suffering, all these things. And so having an example to look to, and I had that in my father, I have that in my father-in-law, I have it in my Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm far from perfect and far from my father, and but I have that example to turn to, and I want my wife to know that I love her and I care for her and I'm here for her. But she's always shown me that as well. When we went through the financially difficult times, I felt like a failure. I felt like I was not providing, presiding, protecting in my home the way that I should. But my wife never let me feel that way. There would have never been a sign from her, a feeling from her, a comment from her that would have made me validate the feelings I was feeling. And I just think, what a blessing she gave me through that all, to make me feel like I had her full support, even when my business decisions were like, well, that's kind of a dumb idea, but she was like, yeah, go for it,
Yeah, there's no question that the same for me. My wife makes me feel like I can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I will say, and I think this is true for most men in the world that are highly successful, they have a very supportive and incredible wife that's backing them up. And I felt that 1,000%. And there's very few things in the world that affect my self-worth, more than how my wife sees me.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, everything else is sort of far less important to me than that one thing. And that has been mostly since day one. I mean, we too struggled the first couple of years a little bit. I remember thinking distinctively back then how much I loved her and adored her before we got married. We got married, loved, adored her then as well. But also the fights and the arguments. And I remember thinking, this is why marriages don't last.
Yeah.
Because right now, today, quitting seems like so easy. And then I could just go see this other pretty girl instead.
Yeah.
Like quitting is just that easy. And if I didn't have this eternal commitment that I had made and this promise or this idea that I'm approaching marriage with a forever approach where I ain't backing down, I'm not going to quit, I'm stuck with this decision no matter what.
Yeah.
Then I approach it with like, so it wasn't even ever an option for me, but I could see how easy it would be if I had a different philosophy, different belief system. And so for me, I felt like, and I always have felt, what a blessing it has been, because she felt the same way. Yeah. But we were like, no, we're not quitting, neither one of us, no matter what. And then you get past that first part, and I always say to friends of ours, you know, even my kids, we've been married 27, we're going on 28 years, and you can't have what I have with her, with my wife, at being married 20. You can't have that special friendship and trust and communication and the relationship we have. You can't have that 28-year relationship if you quit at year 5 or year 3. You know, you and look, it isn't the same as you know, the dating romance and you trade it in. Yeah. It's not like, oh my gosh, she called me back. She texted, like, that's gone. You know, all those initial romance and all that stuff, that's gone. Yeah. But what's there instead was I would say, like deep down, there's not the rush of excitement and stuff, infatuation as first love. But what you have there instead is something that is deep and abiding and lasting.
Sacred, right?
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I, you know, this may be bad counsel for some, but for us, we had a child pretty soon after getting married. We got married, and then our first daughter was born, a year and a half later. She's 20 years old. We're 22 years into marriage. And that gave us something, you know, instead of focusing on ourselves, it gave us something together to focus on as well. And the well-being of this child that we are now going to raise together. It was a miracle.
I'm not going to name names, okay? But I distinctively have in my mind, so many people, I just a list of people I really, you know, I didn't like them. I just didn't like them until they had kids.
Oh, really?
You know, like I wanted to like you, and we hung out together, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then 3-4 years later, after they've had kids that are 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-olds, and they're raising kids, man, what enjoyable people they are.
Interesting. Yeah.
There is something about, you know, this sacrifice a human being has to make to care for and raise and look outside themselves that causes a human being to grow and be more forgiving and more patient and less selfish, less self-absorbed, less narcissistic, like all those things. So I truly, you know, having children, it's almost impossible to have children and not become a better person. Yeah. And develop in a way. I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson say, like, raise your hand if you have kids, and everyone does. Raise your hands if you don't. And then he's like, yeah, all of you people who didn't raise your hand, you're not half the human beings that all, like, he's basically saying, until you have kids, there's very little that I am, you know, I'm going to take everything you say with a grain of salt, because kids are that much of an impact on one's, like, life.
100%. Like I you know, when we got
this isn't to hate on people who didn't have kids.
No, I agree, because there's some that can't, and they're trying to right now. And we've got some individuals here at Mountain Ops that have gone through, you know, infertility issues, and that's been a challenge for them, and something they've had to conquer. And then, you know, some of them have been able to conquer that and have a child, and it's just this miracle, and they do not take that for granted. But man, I look at each of my children, and every single one of them is a miracle in my life. And I've got sweaty eye syndrome. But man, when I think of my wife and children, they're my home. Like I struggle with some separation anxiety. It's part of the reason why I feel like when I got into hunting, I was like, my family's going to do it with me. They're going to go with me. I'm going to be, I just love any amount of time and attention that I can get with them. And it's finite. It's like a, sand through an hourglass. Both of us, our children are growing up, and we're now in a new chapter of our life where the first one's out of the house. We've got another one that says she's on a mission in Brazil. The next one graduates this year, and she's planning on going on a mission at the end of the year. So we're now in this like phase where over the next 6 years, we've got 3 missionaries going out, and then fortunately Savvy's still 11. We've got a little bit of time, but yeah, my biggest joy in life is watching those kids like come to know who they are and come to know that they have a maker who made them for a reason the way they are. And it's just incredible to watch that relationship grow. But
if you do it right too, those kids, they grow up and they become some of your best friends, and that's kind of what's happening with my kids. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We went through some tough times, I was really worried, and still, I'm not out of the woods entirely, but
you always worry for your kids, right?
You want your kids to make those decisions that are going to lead them to a happy life. And it doesn't take much to, drug abuse or some sort of sexual encounter that they're not ready for or grown up for, or some bad decision on one given day, and or an accident of some kind, and you just fight through it all though, and you do your best. And I feel fortunate because it wasn't smooth. It wasn't smooth raising 3 daughters for me. And there were some times where I thought, okay, it's going to go down bad. And we pulled through. We pulled through all of them. We're still pulling through. And I'm seeing them, once they get up to that 21, 23 years old, they kind of have figured stuff out. If you can get through that without some bad accidents or scathing disasters, I feel like, okay, they're fully formed mini adults that have decided, okay, they've kind of figured life out a little bit, and now they're on a path where they're not going to deviate. But man, a 13-year-old girl, a 15-year-old, like, they're some of the dumbest people on planet Earth.
And the girls in junior high, they can be the meanest too. This story
to their own mother, I'm like, they didn't dare do it to my face, but they went after their mom every now and then, teenage girls. And so it was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, no, it's, you kind of have to remind your kids too that, hey, today's the first time I'm doing today. And, when you're a first time parent, I feel like the first child they're being raised with you at the same time. And then you're figuring a few things out a little better. And then the last one is like,
my parents had me when they were 16, 17.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was raised by very young parents that were just figuring things out on their own already.
And that's like, man, the adventure of life, right? I look at life, I look at the things that happen for us, the obstacles that I was not expecting. And I love a saying, just let God prevail.
Yeah.
And, I've thought as long as we can keep our focus in the right place, we can walk those waters, we can do what he needs us to do. But it takes work. There's discipline in that. It's hard work. So.
Well, I look around at life and how it's just modern day, my parents, my kids, and we went through nobody goes through life unscathed. Tragedies, loss, betrayal, it all happens. But it's got me through, and this is really what got me through when Suzanne had cancer, and that was, and I firmly believe this, gratitude. And gratitude and humility go hand in hand. And it's really hard to be proud and have an ego and all this stuff when you're filled with thankfulness. So true. So it's like the antidote to that, to ego. And I truly try very hard every day to exercise gratitude across the board. And I'm at that stage in life where I'm like, if it were to go south, from here on out and just be dark, I'm like, yeah, well, you won the lottery of life up till this date.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can you be still?
Yeah.
I can't be anything but grateful.
So good. Yeah.
And so I lean on that every day. So even when it is dark or it doesn't work out how I want it, or, you struggle, it's like, but man, what a fun ride it had been.
I agree. That's one of our core values at Mountain Ops is gratitude, and striving to have that attitude of gratitude, even in the difficult times, kind of lead us to a brighter future, brighter moments. And I feel like, there's been plenty of times in my life where I've struggled with anxiety, and anxiety comes when you're thinking too much about the future and what could happen and 90% of the time it never happens the way that you are kind of conjuring up in your mind.
Yep.
My wife sent me a text a couple weeks ago, and it had a quote on it that said something about, the adversary is one of his greatest tools is to try to distract us by putting us into a future state, when what that does is takes us away from the moment that we're living in now, that we have right in front of us. And I think it comes back to gratitude, being in the present, recognizing all that's happening for us and among us and the people that are here with us, and taking it all in, those moments at a time. But I fear that there's been a lot of my life that's been lived in the future, and you're never really living there. You're just expecting something. And then, so the sacred presence really means a lot to me, because I've felt the effects of that anxiety living, for what might happen in the future, and protecting myself from this or that. And it's like, no, look at what we're experiencing right now, the conversation, these moments, the moments of gratitude, looking back on incredible things that have happened. That's where I want to be. I want to be in these moments and really find that there's joy in this journey. And it comes back to that gratitude that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So
it really does. There's one of my kids that struggled with some levels of anxiety. She actually went to an anxiety treatment center for a while. I learned a lot about it.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard on people.
Yeah.
Really hard on people. And the tools they learned they employed, and they taught them how to, manage anxiety. It was a eye-opening experience to me, but it goes back to like the same thing that you're talking about. It's this self-talk, how you internalize things, how you see the world.
Yeah.
And when you are focused on that level of gratitude and faith, that it's for a reason, or you're here for a reason, all those other things, it does. That's how you manage that, those emotions and those doubts.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So, well, dude, we have a workout to go do.
We got to go. We're going to work out, and we're going to get a sweat session on in the sauna that we just built down in the mountain. It's been awesome. I've saunaed every day for the last week since. Yeah. And it's just like, talk about like recovery, sleep well, like, stress, like reduction.
That's cool.
It's been awesome.
I'm going to try it.
So we'll go do that.
Cool. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to the Gritty Podcast. And Trevor, where can they find your show?
So the Conquercast on YouTube, on Spotify, any platform, Apple, everywhere, just the Conquercast. And it's a podcast that helps people, equip themselves with ways to conquer more in their lives. So,
right on. Yeah. Folks, go check it out. Subscribe. Check out the podcast we did together. It's a good one. Got a lot of positive feedback on that. So appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, folks. Stay gritty.